The PARIO measures the particle size distribution of soil samples in suspension in a PARIO glass sedimentation cylinder. Before starting the measurement, see the manual for PARIO installation and soil sample pre-treatment instructions. See our other PARIO how-to videos for information on sample pre-treatment procedures. Before beginning your first measurement, download and install the PARIO software from the meter website to your computer. After soil sample preparation, the PARIO measurement process is divided into 4 parts: initialization, execution of the measurement, post-processing, evaluation and export. All fluids, samples, and devices must be fully equilibrated at room temperature. Room temperature should be constant within plus or minus 1.5 degrees Celsius during the entire measurement. Before starting a measurement, deactivate your computer's standby mode and automatic updates to avoid interrupting tests. Each PARIO device is stored in a cylinder filled with distilled water before and after the measurement. This cylinder is referred to as the standby cylinder. The cylinder with the soil sample in suspension to be tested is called the sedimentation cylinder. Provide enough space on a workbench to place the desired number of standby cylinders, sedimentation cylinders, and beakers next to each other on a flat surface. For a series of measurements with multiple PARIO devices, position the standby cylinders in a row behind the sedimentation cylinders. Place the sedimentation cylinders with the outlet opening in front and at a sufficient distance from the front edge of the work table to be able to place the included sample beaker in front of each cylinder. Thoroughly clean and dry each beaker. Then weigh each beaker. Note the tare weight with an accuracy of 1/1000th of a gram. Prepare a label for each sample beaker with the respective sample name and beaker weight. If the surface material of a work table is extremely hard, for example stone, cover it with a thin rubber mat. This reduces the risk of damaging the glass PARIO cylinders and beakers. Fill the standby cylinders to 1 liter with room temperature distilled water. Put the PARIO devices into the standby cylinders. Transfer the dispersed soil sample into the sedimentation cylinder. Use a wash bottle with distilled water to ensure the whole sample is transferred. Fill the sedimentation cylinder with distilled water to bring the level of liquid to the 1000 milliliter mark, ensuring the meniscus touches the upper line of the mark. Be sure that the distilled water is room temperature. Place the rubber stopper on the sedimentation cylinder to avoid evaporation. Connect the PARIO device's USB connector to the PC USB port. If the number of USB ports on the PC is not sufficient for the number of PARIO devices, use a USB bank with an external power supply. Start the PARIO control software previously installed on the PC. All PARIO device LED rings should flash white 3 times when the devices are detected. The ring will remain solid white to indicate the devices are ready for an operation. If this sequence does not happen, disconnect and reconnect the USB cables. Make sure that the USB cables connecting each PARIO device to the computer are loosely aligned and free to move in the back of the workbench. They must be long and flexible enough so the PARIO device is able to be transferred from the standby to the sedimentation cylinder without knocking over the other cylinders. When the software has started, the PARIO control screen opens in a window. Set the respective window to full screen. For a complete tour of each section of the window, see the user manual. For each sample, do the following. 1. Click New Measurement on the PARIO control main screen. 2. Enter the sample name parameter. 3. Change the automatically generated file name parameter if desired. Default values will be set in the windows, as predefined in the Settings menu. In the Sample Data menu, Measurement Data section, enter configuration parameters. Ensure PARIO Plus mode is selected. In PARIO Plus mode, the recommended measurement time is about 2.5 hours. This field shows the time left until the sample can be drained. Meter recommends a measurement time of at least 2 hours. See the user manual for more details. Enter the counter for the homogenization value. The homogenization time must be long enough to achieve a complete homogenization of the suspension at the beginning of the sedimentation. We recommend 60 seconds. Select one of the following homogenization methods: overhead shaking or vertical stirring. Note that the particles in the suspension often stick to the base. In that case, vigorous shaking and/or stirring to mix up the slurry from the base of the cylinder is required before starting the countdown. Use visual inspection to be sure that all sediment is in suspension and no sediment sticks to the base before starting the countdown. When the measurement project is ready to start, a green check mark will appear in the Preparation tab of the Status column. The Start button now becomes selectable, and the LED ring will flash white. If you want to enter more parameters, see the user manual. Loosen any sticky sediment from the sedimentation cylinder base. If the mixing procedure chosen is overhead shaking, close the sedimentation cylinder tightly with the rubber stopper so no suspension will be lost during the overhead shaking. Perform pre-mixing to ensure that no sediment sticks to the bottom of the cylinder. In PARIO Control, click the Start button for the measurement project. This initializes the timer for the homogenization countdown. During the countdown, a mixing animation window is shown in PARIO Control. During the countdown, mix the suspension in the sedimentation cylinder thoroughly using one of the following methods chosen during the initialization phase. With the rubber stopper in place, continually turn the cylinder upside down and back up. Same concept as overhead shaking. When the countdown in PARIO Control reaches 0, place the sedimentation cylinder on the level surface. It's important that the cylinder is on a level surface when the countdown reaches 0, because the measurement begins and the sedimentation starts. Place the sedimentation cylinder with the valve facing front, and remove the rubber stopper from the cylinder. Remove the PARIO device from the standby cylinder, bringing it momentarily into a horizontal position. The horizontal orientation is detected by the PARIO Control software and identifies the PARIO device connected to the specific sample during the test. Insert the PARIO device into the sedimentation cylinder, carefully fitting the groove of the PARIO on the rim of the sedimentation cylinder. Be careful not to hit the pressure sensor on the edge of the sedimentation cylinder. The amount of time from the end of the mixing until the insertion of the PARIO device should not exceed 20 seconds. Remember to make sure the computer standby mode and automatic updates are deactivated to avoid interrupting the PARIO measurement. If the device detection was successful, the measurement status line of the running measurement, shown in PARIO Control, is moved automatically from the Preparation tab to the In Progress tab, and the PARIO LED ring changes to slow pulsing blue. PARIO Control now records 3 parameters, time, pressure, and temperature, every 10 seconds and depicts the recorded data graphically in real time. If multiple PARIO devices are used, repeat the starting measurement steps for each sample. Switching windows in PARIO Control will not affect the running measurements. Leave the PARIO devices undisturbed for the duration of the measurement time. Make sure the empty sample beaker weight is recorded on a label on the beaker. Between 2 to 3 hours after the start of sedimentation, hold the sample beaker under the outlet opening, open the valve, and collect the draining suspension. Draining usually occurs within 10 seconds after opening the valve. When draining is complete, close the valve again. Place the beaker with the drained suspension in the drying oven. Dry at 105 degrees Celsius until the weight stops changing, usually overnight. PARIO Control automatically detects when the sample is collected because a steep pressure drop will occur. The measurement will continue to run for another 120 seconds to safely record the dropped pressure before it automatically stops the test. Let the PARIO continue running for 2 minutes after the small sample is taken to avoid interrupting the software. The software will automatically stop the measurement after 2 minutes. After the drained subsample drying is complete, remove the beaker with the dry mass from the oven and place it in a desiccator to cool for a few minutes. Then place it on a balance and determine the weight within an accuracy of 1/1000th of a gram. Calculate and document the dry sample weight. Please be extremely cautious and precise when weighing this sample. Errors in weighing will directly lead to errors in the determined clay fraction of the soils. For more guidance, see the user manual. After completion of the measurement, lift the PARIO device out of the suspension in the sedimentation cylinder and place it back in the standby cylinder with distilled water. If necessary, rinse the shaft of the PARIO with a gentle jet of water and clean the shaft with a soft cloth before inserting it into the standby cylinder with distilled water. Never touch the pressure sensor that is shielded by the sensor cover at the end of the device shaft. Spray only a soft stream of water in the area of the sensor covering to avoid damaging the pressure sensor. Note that since the PARIO device transfers a small amount of the suspension from the sedimentation cylinder to the standby cylinder, the distilled water may change over time and algae may form. If this happens, replace the distilled water. The PARIO devices in standby position are instantly ready for the next measurement. For short-term storage, for example when the next measurement takes place immediately afterwards or within a few days, the device can be kept permanently in the standby position. For information on long-term storage, see the user manual. Once the PARIO measurement is complete, the measurement sample needs to go through wet sieving, one final post-processing step to determine the sand content. We recommend doing the wet sieving right after the PARIO measurement using the same sample to ensure the results are consistent with the PARIO results. We also recommend doing the sieve analysis with a three-dimensional working screening machine combining throw pulse and angular momentum. This guarantees an optimal movement of the screenings. The sieves are mounted downward with the largest mesh opening on top. Depending on the screening machine, the duration and type of movement will have to be defined. Please refer to the appropriate screening machine manual. To sieve the PARIO measurement sample, transfer the contents of the PARIO sedimentation cylinder into the uppermost mesh of the screening tower. Use a spray bottle to transfer all particles of the soil sample into the sieve. Continue the screening until the water coming out of the drain hose is clear. Place the residues of the sieves in weighed and labeled glass beakers. Put the glass beakers in the oven for 24 hours at 105 degrees Celsius. Calculate and document the dry soil weights to evaluate the wet sieving. All parts of the PARIO measurement are now completed. For data evaluation and export, see the user manual.